During later years, just like throughout all stages of existence, an individual confronts a deep inquiry regarding their very essence. How does someone maintain consciousness of self when connections diminish and accustomed foundations slowly fade away? This inquiry doesn't emerge from nowhere. It surfaces when chronology demonstrates its relentless power, and individuals who previously appeared indispensable gradually withdraw from our existence. However, it's exactly during this critical juncture that Kant's reflections on ethical independence, liberty, and the internal legislator acquire special relevance. Later years represent a trial for individuals who succeed in sustaining an internal bond with themselves, irrespective of surrounding circumstances. As Kant expressed, humanity must serve as legislation for itself, never becoming subservient to outside forces. During younger days, we frequently overlook this truth because our contentment relies on other people, on relatives, companions, romantic connections. However, advancing age dismantles this reliance. It doesn't display every bond, yet it exposes which relationships hold genuine worth and which constitute simple delusions. This recognition arrives when offspring depart, companions distance themselves, and life partners transform into unfamiliar individuals. Individuals we previously regarded as our foundations prove themselves transitory associates. As Kant articulated it, the sole foundation someone can genuinely depend upon is their personal ethical fortitude. Put differently, during later years, we must discover not to depend on temporary elements, but on what endures inside us. Kant identifies this as the independence of consciousness, the human capacity to behave following an internal ethical principle separate from outside conditions. This leads us toward the four foundations that establish the basis of existence during later years. The initial one is the capacity to exist alone without perceiving isolation as suffering. Kant comprehended existing alone not as simple separation, but as a requirement for internal liberty. He stressed, humanity must discover how to exist within oneself, because the outside realm cannot grant genuine contentment. And with progressing years and the weakening of outside connections, we must discover how to construct an internal bond with ourselves. If someone doesn't discover how to exist alone, existence transforms into a vacant domain occupied solely with disorder. Individuals who discover no tranquility in their personal company become reliant on other people, and existence forfeits its purpose because it isn't directed by an internal standard. Existing alone absolutely doesn't suggest abandoning social connections, but instead liberating oneself from their misleading importance. An individual must liberate themselves from reliance on the outside realm to discover genuine contentment inside themselves. For instance, a lady exists alone in a peaceful dwelling. Each evening she positions herself near the window with a novel by Chekhov and a cup of tea. She doesn't escape from isolation. Conversely, she occupies it with purpose. This represents, as Kant stressed, genuine liberty. When an individual can exist in balance with themselves, they're no longer affected by outside conditions. Individuals who no longer fear existing alone don't perceive isolation as suffering, but as genuine liberty. The second foundation is a structured daily schedule. Kant notes that structure in everyday existence not only simplifies living, but also establishes the foundation for ethical development. He states human existence cannot be liberated if structure is absent in living. This becomes particularly vital during later years because the disorder of the outside realm can result in internal disturbance. Structure in daily existence doesn't simply indicate cleaning the dwelling or arranging possessions, but primarily establishing internal structure, the foundation of ethical standards. When an individual organizes their environment, they simultaneously organize their consciousness. An organized dwelling mirrors a clear spirit. Consider an instance. A lady exists in a dwelling with 3 closets overflowing with unnecessary possessions, outdated garments, a damaged ceiling fixture, mementos she cannot release. In this situation, Kant states, connection to history, preserved in possessions, becomes a weight that obstructs movement toward tomorrow. During later years, when chronology no longer permits chances to rectify previous errors, it's vital to release history to maintain energy for the current moment. Kant stressed cleanliness is a required condition for the advancement of liberty. Individuals who cannot organize their daily existence cannot cultivate internal liberty either. Consequently, structure in everyday existence is the initial step on the journey toward the ethical principle. The third foundation is apathy toward the assessment of other people. Kant declares that genuine liberty indicates behaving separate from others' perspectives. Liberty is the capacity to behave following one's personal internal principle, not to obtain the validation of other people. During later years, when outside attachments diminish and the physique forfeits vitality, someone must acknowledge that other people may no longer comprehend them, that one's existence no longer aligns with others' expectations. But individuals who discover how to disregard these assessments obtain liberty. Kant states, someone must discover how to decline the perspectives of other people to maintain one's ethical wholeness. For instance, a neighbor disputes with his spouse each evening but asserts to be content. In actuality, Kant declares the perspectives of other people are simply reflections of their personal anxieties, not demonstrations of genuine contentment. As someone advances in years and recognizes that other people don't genuinely comprehend them, someone must discover how to exist by one's personal ethical direction. The most authentic respect emerges when someone silently embraces oneself. And that's exactly liberty, needing to defend nothing, demonstrate nothing, simply existing as someone believes is correct. The fourth foundation is loyalty to oneself, the most profound form of liberty. An individual must sense that their existence holds purpose, and this purpose must emerge from their personal ethical awareness. As someone advances in years, and other people may no longer rely on them, it becomes increasingly crucial to maintain the sensation that one's existence still holds importance. This isn't regarding wealth, commendation, or acknowledgement, but regarding the internal perception that each day matters. Kant declared the purpose of existence doesn't rest in existing with other people, but in existing with oneself. For instance, a lady applied lipstick each morning despite knowing nobody would call on her. She prepared herself coffee in a chaise simply to experience the fragrance of the morning. Occasionally she recited poems to her feline companion. It may appear insignificant, but exactly such minor elements gave her existence reality and dimension. Some individuals cultivate tomatoes on the terrace, not for the yield, but for the attention required. Other people do exercises in the morning, so their physique doesn't become rigid. Still, other people record reflections in a compact journal, so the day doesn't elapse unobserved. Performing something for oneself establishes rhythm, and the day forfeits its vacancy. If an individual doesn't sense significant, doesn't perceive themselves as worthwhile, their existence becomes vacant. As long as someone discovers no purpose in their existence, they remain confined in meaninglessness. Consequently, particularly during later years when outside connections diminish, it's vital to discover purpose in one's personal behaviors. For Kant, as for each philosopher attempting to comprehend the nature of human existence, it was never solely regarding outside, but primarily regarding internal liberty, separation from outside conditions. Later years is that juncture when an individual confronted with the weakening of outside attachments can cultivate a more powerful internal liberty. Herein rests the genuine strength of aging. It demonstrates that authentic liberty doesn't rely on outside conditions, but on how profoundly an individual is bonded with themselves. As Kant declared, liberty is not the non-existence of limitations, but the capacity to behave following one's personal principles. Individuals who succeed in strengthening these four foundations achieve a liberty that establishes the foundation of their existence. Individuals who fail, however, will possess an existence that, as Kant stated, is an vacant domain occupied solely with disorder. Later years is consequently not a conclusion, but the commencement of a fresh stage, a period in which an individual must discover how to rely on themselves. For as Kant declared, humanity must serve as legislation for itself, never becoming subservient to outside forces.